Manchester United. That's the first conversation. I apologise if it feels like we do the big clubs too soon, but it's a big, big story, you have to say. Manchester United looking like they're going absolutely nowhere, beaten 3-0 by Tottenham Hotspur. But they are set to stick with Erik Ten Hag, their manager, for the games on Thursday night against Porto in the Europa League. Aston Villa away in the Premier League, not really a place you'd want to go at this point in time. Poor start to the season. Manchester United in 12th. Their 7 points so far is the club's joint fewest after 6 games of a Premier League season. Strangely, by the way, I think this actually helps Erik Ten Hag, but only in the 2007-2008 season have United scored fewer goals in their first 6 Premier League games. That was a pretty decent Premier League side, as I remember. Tevez, Berbatov, was it? Rooney in 2008, but there you go. They, at this point, can't really compare themselves to that team.
Not really.
Listen, I want to talk about the players a little bit later on. Maybe I should do it now. Let me do it now, because Ten Hag's getting a lot of heat and everyone's saying he's not the man for Manchester United. But I want to talk about the game itself before we go to his future. You know, Tottenham were very, very good in the game. We'll talk about them later on as well. But I do feel like we've hit the point where it comes down to a lack of professionalism amongst Manchester United's players. Sometimes ex-footballers mention this thing, personal pride. You should want to do it for your own personal pride. You've gone out there on a football pitch. You should want to win and show the world that you're a decent player. I don't even mean that. I mean professionalism. I mean, you get paid to play football, and the minimum you can do is put in an effort. Stay focused, concentrate on the job that you get paid to do. We watch footballers across the continent, across the world, in the lower leagues in this division, who have more focus on their game than Manchester United's players, week in, week out. Giving up on 50-50s, not chasing players 60, 70 yards. No one wants to put in a foot. No one wants to give a free kick away, take the yellow card for the team, tactical foul, whatever it might be. No one wants to mark their man. And then they hold up a hand in the air like, it's a training. Listen, I'm not joking. I came from five-a-side in White City last night. There's more anger and hunger in some of the performances out there than I'm seeing for Manchester United. It's crazy. So before the manager gets all the heat, and there are many reasons to think he's not the guy, at this stage, you can't even tell the quality of him as a manager, because the players have gone out there with such a low level of application that I feel like they're getting away with it a little bit.
Well, let me ask you, because I think it's a fair point. If this exact group of players had Pep Guardiola managing them, would that same level of, or that same lack of professionalism be displayed?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because the manager just wouldn't have it. And I get it. You can say, well, Erik Ten Hag is accepting it. But he bought a lot of these players. So it's hard for you to just be like, if Pep had bought all these players, he would have bought them for a reason. He would have bought them for a reason, and they would have shown those characteristics before he brought them to the football club. The point is, he's brought players into the football club who don't show the characteristics they need to be high-level professionals. That is on him. But ultimately, I still feel like you get paid a lot of money to play football. You know, it is a dream job for all of these people. They all dreamt about being professional footballers, and they've made it. You know, the idea that you'd go out there on the football pitch and not live your dream to an extent by just putting in the effort to enjoy it and win some games, I find it crazy. The manager will pay with his job, but I think to compare him to the likes of Guardiola is almost false.
Well, I just give an example.
You could name any team. Yeah. The problem is, I can go Iraola at Bournemouth. Would he accept that? Gary O'Neill at Wolves. Would he accept that? Even Lopetegui at West Ham. Would he accept that from his players? And the answer is probably no.
Well, this is why you're right to, I think, flag the players, because there's a level of just self-pride that I think when you go onto the pitch, as you mentioned, to kind of fulfill your dream as being a professional footballer, you just do the basics are to be expected. So there's the responsibility does first and foremost lay with the players. But I'm also a big believer in, I've said this before, if the Pickney is being out of order and the Pickney is a bad breed and doing wrong, after a while I'm looking at the parent. You only get away with as much as you're allowed to get away with. So that's why I mentioned if any other manager had this group of players, they wouldn't be allowed to. There'd be a standard, there'd be a culture that would be imbued that would not allow these players to do the bare minimum. So I'm not allowing the players to get off the hook here, but I think the wider culture, that's a word that's been used a lot with United, that has been created over a decade now, has allowed players to sign for United, see the standards, what's going on here, and think, okay, I don't have to do more than the bare minimum. So I put as much pressure and as much blame on. I think the most interesting element of the triangle, if you like, players, manager, and board, is the board. I think the players. And we've said this before, and I'll defer to Darren, but I've heard people like you, Darren, say that this is a good squad. I've always questioned that. I'm not sure this is as a good squad as people make it out to be. I don't think Arsenal take any of those players in that United squad. I'm not sure Villa take, and I'm talking quality now. How many players in that United squad would be wanted by the top teams? Not many, if any at all. But I think the bigger issue is the decisions that are being made by the semi-new ownership and the board, which is they're making bad decisions, they're making repetitive wrong decisions. That for me is what's more interesting than the players chucking it in and whether Ten Hag is good enough to be there or not. Because I think the answer is that he's not and the players aren't.
Listen, I think you make a lot of good points. I think the attitude at any football club reflects the leadership. Mm-hmm. And that's the reason why the manager is on the hook. I think a lot of people watching this, all of us in the room, we've seen so many occasions where players are half a yard short under one manager, and then the very same players under a different manager suddenly find their stride again.
Sancho.
Well, listen.
Immediately.
But again, Sancho is in a club where there's a clear and working for a man, and in a team where there is a clear tactical plan. There are consequences for poor performance. There is an attitude within the playing contingent that reflects the leadership.
I'd hold fire on Sancho as well. I wouldn't.
But not.
Listen, the reason
I take the overall point.
The reason I raised him is not because I'm saying he's a world beater. Because Chelsea didn't. He probably had 2 training sessions, went out on the pitch for Chelsea, and you were like, "Oh, there's a player there." I'm not saying he's a world beater, but at Manchester United, it looked like there was no player there. When he went out for us, it very rarely looked like he was anywhere near the 75 million that we paid for him. 2 games for Chelsea, I'm like, oh yeah, he can do a bit. Pass selection, fantastic. Confidence there suddenly. So for me, you're right. You know, he's just gone into an environment where it's like the standards are high. You got to be at it, and when he's at it, he's a very good player.
And I think same for McTominay, he's top of the league now with Napoli at the moment under Conte. Same thing. The attitude of the playing contingent reflects the leadership. United are a mess. United are full of good ideas, grand plans, playing to the gallery. But the leadership at the moment is a mess. And yes, I know there are new people who've come in and whatever else. But the squad is a mishmash of players that used to play for Ten Hag in Holland or have operated in the Eredivisie, and underachieving players at United. But I agree with you both. If somebody else came in, and they have had authoritarian managers at Manchester United, let's not kid ourselves. Mourinho was authoritarian. Van Gaal was authoritarian. They had limited success and then it fell away because there is just something.
It's above them.
Yeah, I think it is above them. There is something at United, and I've said this for a long time when we've had debates privately and publicly about United. There have been a number of players who have been in terrific form before they've arrived at Manchester United, then their form has dipped, and they've never quite found it again. And I think, listen, it goes without saying that I think they'll lose the next 2 games away from home. Their away record isn't that good. They're up against Aston Villa, who are everything that they are not. Aston Villa are a terrific side at the moment, and they're away to Porto as well. I think they too will win. And ultimately, I think the manager will have to go. They indulged him in the summer bringing in his players that he wanted, and they have invested heavily on him. So if they were to part company with him, he could have no complaints. And the biggest thing I saw was a colleague writing at the weekend that ahead of the Spurs game, he'd had 122 matches across all competitions over 2 seasons, entering his 3rd now. and the jury is still out on him. How could that be the case?
Another poor stat I sort of heard this morning was that this was the 25th time United have conceded 3 or more under his tenure. I reckon Sir Alex Ferguson, and I hate doing the comparison with Ferguson, so I'm being a bit of a hypocrite here. I reckon in Sir Alex Ferguson's 26 tenure, he might have lost or might have conceded 3 or more goals in a game over 25 years. But I know you want to focus on the
I was about to say, I saw the stat, and this is not a Ten Hag stat, but the game at the weekend meant that United had lost, I think, by 3 goals as many times as Ferguson had been in charge since he's left.
I
so
love
26
stats,
years under Ferguson and now 11 years without him.
Okay, that
the same number of 3 goal defeats.
I love stats as much as you two and everyone else.
I just wanted to confirm.
But I think the one thing I would say about the game against Tottenham, I'm in the minority. I don't think Tottenham actually played as well as they could do. I think their decision making wasn't great. Werner missed 2 one-on-ones. There were opportunities when they could have scored elsewhere.
Could have been 7.
It could have been 7. It could, and that's in the first half, right? And that's the thing. You don't need any level of stats or particular insight to know that performance, I probably would say it's the worst performance of the lot.
I don't think... See, I've heard that a lot over the last few days, and maybe it's just recency bias. I've heard people saying, and United fans, and look, I've deferred to United fans, I could be wrong here. I've heard this, that was the worst. That was the worst. I don't think it is the worst. I mean, under him, potentially, but in the last 10 years, I think we've seen worse than that.
Worst performances under Ten Hag from United?
Well, I think both. I think both. It's
Probably,
it's up there.
We can only talk about the Ten Hag era.
But I guess what I'm saying is I don't think it's even his worst performance.
Yeah, I don't think...
I think the Brentford 4-0 was worse.
No, but it's not about performances. It's not really about performances anymore with Erik Ten Hag. I described it the other day as like, for those of you that are fans of Stranger Things, like being in the Upside Down, where, there's a world where all the trees are just ashy, everything's black, the clouds are dark. We've gone onto that side now where I'm just living an existence where everything is the opposite of what it is in reality. Like, I've been cheated on for like the 7th time now, let's put it that way. Like, after 3, there was a bit of pain. This time it's like, it's just what she does.
You're numb to it.
Like, yeah, I'm just numb to it. Like, it is what it is. He's been done for a long time. Man United came out looking for a new manager. He will be gone when there's a high quality candidate interested in being Manchester United manager. That's the reality. So now we are just treading water until that time happens. The biggest mistake in terms of leadership wasn't even keeping him. It was then giving him players that he wanted, knowing full well you had no faith in this guy to be the manager of Manchester United. Crazy decision.
Can I ask you both a question? With INEOS, have they made one decision since they've been there that you think they've got right?
Well, no, the appointments of the likes of Dan Ashworth, Omar Barada, Jason Wilcox, these are good decisions. These are people with good reputations.
Well, them
in
as
the
a
game.
collective, have they as a collective made a decision so far that you think they've got right?
Good question.
I know they've not been there long.
Yeah.
But
I think what they've tried to do is
taking their time as well was a good idea. Let's be honest, good decision.
I think they've tried to work in the truest traditions of United, which is giving a manager time, working on the basis of the most famous of them all having that time to do what he did. So they tried to be fair to him and they tried to back him with the players that they brought in for him. But I think everything that we've seen so far suggests that it's just the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again. And I don't really see anything that's going to change about it.
I think this game as well was a really interesting kind of symmetry of one manager and a team that seem to pluck out results every now and again by pivoting to whatever he thinks needs to be done, versus a manager who's been the complete opposite. This is how I'm doing it. We're going to lose some games. There's going to be some pain. And I'm an Arsenal fan, so I've got no time for Spurs. But I've always backed. I did it with Vincent Kompany at Burnley. I did it with Graham Potter at Chelsea. I really believe in managers having their way of playing and doubling down on it. Yeah. And you may lose some games, but this is how we're playing right now. And if I live and die by this sword, then so be it. Yeah. And Postecoglou, I really like how he's just refusing to budge from his way. And he's saying to his players, look, I might not be here in 2 years' time. I might be fired because we lose too many games. But while I'm here, this is how I'm taking this team forward. Whereas Ten Hag seems to just pivot to whatever. And he's got some wins against Liverpool and against City. But there's no consistent thread of what Man United really are. And I thought this was a really good experiment almost of one guy that's flexible versus one guy that's rigid. But actually, I'm on the side of being rigid.
Let's bring it on to Postecoglou. But very quickly, last word on Ten Hag. As we talk, it's Tuesday morning. Porto away, Villa away. Next Tuesday morning, will Ten Hag still be Manchester United boss?
It's hard to know whether or not he will still be the boss, but I don't think they'll win either game.
I think he will. I think he will be the boss still.
Yeah, I tend to agree.
I think they've been very intransigent. That's probably the wrong word. I think they've been very... a lot of people would say they're standing by their man, but if there was a better candidate out there, it would be remiss of them not to put them in.
Tottenham, I think... Yeah, Tottenham, they were good. I think they are a good team, not a great team. I think they'll probably finish 5th in the Premier League. I don't think they'll trouble the top 3, possibly top 4. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think we should kind of be lulled into a false sense of an idea that Spurs are brilliant because of what they did on Sunday. They were brilliant on Sunday, but as we discussed, United are United, and it wouldn't stun anybody in this room if Spurs lost their next game, right? The evolution of Postecoglou's football at Tottenham Hotspur is still underway. There'll be bumps in the road. But I looked at their 11, funnily enough, and thought to myself, that midfield in terms of the 3, Bentancur, Kulusevski and Maddison, 3 ballers, but I just thought, I don't know if that's the 3 you want in the midfield away at Old Trafford. I'm hands up. I thought United were going to win that game. I thought no Son as well. I thought United were going to win that match. So more for
Bias.
me. Well, not
Wanted
really.
to Man United to win that game.
Not even. But the fact that United were so poor made it very easy. But it also reminded me that they got some good players at Spurs.
Yeah,
they're not. I don't think top 3, top 4 worthy. But in and around 4th, 5th, 6th, they can definitely lock it down. And I think if they stick with Postecoglou, if the fan base get behind him and say, look, the football's a bit better, there will be some defeats along the way, but we're on a journey. You've talked about Spurs understanding who they are. If they can solidify who they are and where they're going, I think it could still be a good season for them for sure.
I think they're a good team. I'm still not sure about the high line, and I think that better teams than Man United will take advantage of it. In fact, as bad as United were, they did have a couple of opportunities.
With 10 men, yeah.
With 10 men. They missed a sitter in the second half. And that's Tottenham. They will give you chances. So I don't think any Tottenham fan will get carried away with that victory, the manner of it. I think they need to be better defensively. I think they need more protection for that back 4 from the midfield. And they do need more goals up top. Timo Werner underlined why he's very much a bench player and not a first team starter. I think Solanke will get better, but even there was a second opportunity he had to double his tally on the day that he didn't take. I think Tottenham are a good team. I don't think they're a top 4 or 5 team just yet. I think Chelsea have more potency in front of goal, and in Cole Palmer, we're going to talk about him in a bit. They've got one of the 2 best players in the league.
I think Chelsea's 11's better than Spurs' 11?
Definitely.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes, I do.
Are you mad?
Defensively, I think
Chelsea's defence is horrible.
Defensively, no, I don't have an issue with that.
But the front 6 positions are stacked.
Yeah, but Tottenham's front 6 aren't awful. The gap between Spurs' front 6 and Chelsea's front 6 is not miles.
Tottenham's back 4 is not amazing.
I'm taking it
Would you
all day long before Chelsea's.
You take Tottenham's front 6 over Chelsea's?
No, Chelsea's better, but I'm saying the gap between attack and defence for the 2 is marginal in terms of the attacks.
Let me
but
ask
defence,
you this.
they're miles ahead.
Let me ask you this. Which attacking player at Tottenham is comparable to Cole Palmer?
Nobody. But I think he's the anomaly. Take Cole Palmer out of that Chelsea attack. You've got lots of good attackers. Jackson's great. Madueke's great.
You keep saying great.
Who's great?
You keep saying great. You're going to a real extreme straight away.
Okay, even good. So if you're saying those players are good, well, Bentancur's good. Johnson's good. Son's better than good.
I would take Caicedo over Bentancur.
Yeah, so would I.
I think Son has been good. I think he's getting on now.
Agree.
And so I would take the youth of Sancho at the moment. I know that's a big call, but
No,
I
not
think
for me.
that
Neto, Madueke.
Madueke I like.
Nete I like. Madueke, let's see.
There's loads at
The point I'm
Chelsea.
making is that I just find it interesting that you would have Chelsea as significantly stronger favourites to get fourth ahead of Spurs. And I would say it's a lot closer than...
But Palmer's the reason why.
Palmer's the difference.
Palmer's a big part of the reason
fair.
why, but also I just look at the fact that he is the coach has never been an issue at Chelsea. He's a good coach. He's a really good coach. And given we debated it at the start of the season about the fact that in Premier League terms he's a rookie in terms of being the man who is in the hot seat, but he's built on the work of Pochettino, and he's started to make something of what was a side that people were not sure about given all of the transfers. And I just see where they're going. I see where Tottenham are going as well. I just think Chelsea could be the ones. Listen, I don't think either of them will finish in the top four. I think it'll be City, Liverpool, Arsenal and Aston Villa. But I think Chelsea will be ahead of Spurs outside of that.